Get out! Get out, you old hag! The words ripped through me, sharper than any knife, colder than the winter wind that whistled through the half-open door. My son Naeem stood there, a monstrous stranger in the doorway of my living room, his face twisted into a snarl I barely recognized. Behind him, Salma, my daughter, clutched a designer handbag to her chest, her eyes darting between her brother's furious face and my trembling hands. This wasn't a nightmare. This was happening. My own children, the ones I had nursed, nurtured, and loved with every fiber of my being, were kicking me out of my own home, the home I had built brick by painstaking brick alongside their father. Naeem, please. What are you doing? This is my house. Your father and I, we poured our lives into this place. I pleaded, my voice cracking, a desperate wail that seemed to bounce off the newly painted walls, mocking my helplessness. My eyes pleaded with Salma, hoping for a flicker of the kind girl she once was, the one who would run to me with every scraped knee, every childish fear. But her gaze was flat, distant, a chilling reflection of her brother's cold resolve. It was as if a switch had been flipped, turning my gentle children into calculating machines. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over me, making me feel smaller, more insignificant than I ever had in my entire life. Your house? Mother, open your eyes. This house is ours now. We have the papers. You signed them. Don't you remember? You're old. You forget things. His words dripped with a condescending sweetness that was far more hurtful than any shouted insult. He knew I didn't forget. He knew the pressure they had put on me, the constant badgering, the false promises of care and comfort if I just simplified things. He knew it was a lie. Salma finally spoke, her voice thin, almost a whisper, but laced with an unsettling edge. Mother, it's for the best. You're getting older. You need care. We can't be here all the time. This house is too big for you. We've made arrangements. You'll be comfortable. Comfortable? Was that what they called throwing your own mother out onto the street with nothing but the clothes on her back? Was comfort measured in the depth of a betrayal? My mind reeled, trying to grasp the enormity of their heartlessness. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of disbelief and rising anger. Arrangements? What arrangements? You haven't told me anything. This is my home. Where will I go? What about my things? My memories? All the years. All the sacrifices I made for you both. The words tumbled out, a torrent of pain and rage. I gestured wildly around the room, at the worn armchair where their father used to read, at the framed photographs on the mantelpiece, capturing smiles and moments that now felt like a cruel joke. Naeem's patience, if he ever had any, snapped. Enough. We don't have time for this drama. The buyers are coming tomorrow. This house needs to be empty. He grabbed my arm, his grip surprisingly strong, pulling me towards the front door. You think you're going to stop us? You think your sentimental tears will change anything? We've worked too hard for this. His grip tightened, bruising my skin, but the pain in my heart eclipsed any physical ache. Let go of me. You barbarian. How dare you lay a hand on your mother? I struggled, my old bones protesting, but a surge of adrenaline gave me surprising strength. I twisted, trying to pull away, my fury finally erupting. You want to throw me out? Then look at what you're doing. Look at the monster you've become, Naeem. And you, Salma. Salma flinched at my words, a tiny flicker of something unreadable in her eyes, but it vanished as quickly as it appeared. Naeem shoved me harder, pushing me towards the open doorway. Don't you dare speak to Salma like that. We are doing what's necessary. This is business, mother. You're just in the way. His words were cold, devoid of any warmth, any recognition of the woman who had brought him into this world. Business? Was I just an obstacle in their grand scheme? I stumbled, catching myself on the doorframe, my vision blurring with unshed tears and pure, unadulterated rage. Necessary? This is necessary, Naeem? To throw your own mother, a widow, onto the street? May Allah forgive you, for I never will. You will live to regret this day. You will live with the shame of this. Every night when you lie in your comfortable beds, remember me out here because of you. He pushed me one last time. A forceful shove that sent me sprawling onto the cracked pavement of the front porch. My old knees hit hard, sending a jolt of pain up my legs. My purse, containing my meager savings and a few precious photographs, skittered across the concrete. I scrambled, trying to gather it, my hands shaking. Salma watched, unmoving, as Naeem stepped over me, his face set, and reached for the heavy wooden gate. The gate creaked shut, slowly, deliberately, each groan of the hinges a punctuation mark on my agony. Through the narrow gap before it fully closed, I saw them. Not my children, not my Naeem and Salma, but two cold, calculating figures standing in my living room. And then, through the sheer pane of the front window, as the last sliver of light faded and the gate clicked shut, I saw it. A brief, unsettling movement in the shadows behind them. A silhouette, a third person obscured by the dimming light, quickly moving out of sight. They weren't alone. And suddenly my crushing despair was replaced by a chilling realization. This wasn't just about the house. This was something far, far worse. The biting cold of the street was a sharp contrast to the burning anger in my gut as I sat there, watching the lights in my house go on, then off, then on again. That laugh. The shadowy figure. It was all a twisted puzzle, and I was the only one trying to solve it, abandoned and alone. But I wasn't always alone. My breath hitched in my throat, a ragged gasp that tore at my lungs. The cold night air bit into my exposed skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill that seeped into my bones. The gravel bit into my knees, sharp little stones pressing against old flesh, but I didn't feel it. All I could feel was the searing pain of betrayal. A wound so deep it felt like my very soul was bleeding. My home, my sanctuary, the place where I had raised them, loved them, sacrificed for them, was now a sealed tomb, a monument to their cruelty. "This is not over," I whispered, the words barely audible, a promise to myself, a curse to them. "This is far from over." My eyes, burning with unshed tears, were fixed on the window. The shadowy figure. Who was it? What connection did they have to Naeem and Salma's sudden, chilling ruthlessness? It wasn't just greed for the house. It was something more. Something darker. My mind, usually sharp, felt like a tangled ball of yarn. Each thread a memory, a question, a painful realization. I pushed myself up, slowly, painfully, my joints creaking in protest. My hands, still grimy from the fall, brushed against the small, worn purse that had been tossed after me. Inside, a meager few rupees, my spectacles, and the faded photograph of my late husband, his kind eyes smiling back at me. He had always warned me about the world, about trusting too easily. How I wished he was here now, to see what his children had become, to offer a word of comfort, a guiding hand. The streetlights flickered to life, casting long, eerie shadows that danced around me like mocking spirits. The silence of the night, usually a comfort, was now a heavy shroud, amplifying the emptiness in my heart. No neighbor came out, no car slowed down. The world moved on, indifferent to the broken old woman sitting on the curb, abandoned by her own blood. But that shadow, it nagged at me, a sharp splinter in my mind. It was too quick, too purposeful. A sudden jarring sound from inside the house jolted me. A laugh. Not Naeem's harsh bark, nor Salma's polite titter, but a deep, throaty chuckle, unfamiliar and unsettling. It echoed through the closed windows, a ghostly whisper in the quiet night, confirming my chilling suspicion. They weren't just selling the house. There was someone else involved, someone who found my suffering amusing. The laugh sent a shiver down my spine, a cold premonition that the fight for my home is only just beginning, and it would be far more dangerous than I could ever imagine. This isn't just a family dispute. It's a sinister game, and I'm unknowingly a pawn. As I sat there, watching the lights in my house go on, then off, then on again, the memory of that unsettling laugh, that shadowy figure, began to unravel the whole messy knot of their betrayal. This wasn't a sudden act of cruelty. It was a long, slow poisoning, a gradual shift that had turned my loving children into heartless strangers. There was a time not so long ago when this house, this family, was filled with warmth, with laughter, with the promise of a future that felt as solid as the bricks around us. My husband, Ahmed. He was the anchor of our lives, the rock upon which we built everything. A hardworking, honest man who built this house with his own two hands, literally pouring his sweat and dreams into every brick. I remember him coming home, covered in dust, but with a proud twinkle in his eye, always talking about a secure future for our children. We saved every penny, denied ourselves luxuries, all so Naeem and Salma could have a good life. Ahmed always used to say, "Our children are our greatest wealth, Maryam. Invest in them and you'll never be poor." Oh, how those words echo in this cold night, mocking my very existence. Naeem was always the ambitious one, even as a little boy. He was smart, quick to learn, but there was always a glint in his eye, a restless desire for more. Salma, my sweet Salma, was quieter, more artistic. She loved to draw, to sing, filling our home with gentle melodies. I imagined her marrying a kind man, raising a family, painting beautiful pictures. We sent Naeem to the best engineering university, even taking out a second mortgage on this very house to cover his exorbitant fees. He promised to repay us, to take care of us when he graduated, when he got that big job overseas. And he did for a while. He sent money, called regularly. We were so proud, boasting about our successful son to anyone who would listen. Then came the gradual shift. It wasn't sudden, not like a storm. It was more like a slow creeping fog that eventually swallowed everything. Ahmed fell ill, a long drawn-out sickness that drained us emotionally and financially. Naeem's calls became less frequent, his visits shorter, filled with excuses. He'd complain about the high cost of living abroad, the immense pressures of his job, making us feel like a burden. Salma, who had just finished her studies and started working, also began to seem distant. She'd sigh loudly when I talked about Ahmed's mounting medical bills, suggest we look into cheaper options, never offering to help herself. Their father, the man who built their world, was slowly becoming nothing more than a financial drain in their cold, calculating eyes. After Ahmed passed, the house felt empty, too big for just me. Yet it was filled with his memory, with every corner holding a piece of our life together. Naeem flew in for the funeral, a grim, efficient presence, already eyeing the property. Salma cried, but even her tears felt controlled, a performance. That's when the discussions started, subtly at first, soft suggestions about managing my affairs, about simplifying things. Naeem kept talking about an investment opportunity that required quick access to capital, constantly mentioning how valuable this house was. Salma would echo his sentiments, saying, "Mother, you deserve to relax, not worry about house repairs or property taxes," painting a picture of a carefree retirement that felt utterly hollow. I remember one evening about 6 months ago, Naeem brought home a stack of papers. Legal documents, he said, just routine. He talked fast, a stream of confusing jargon about trusts and power of attorney. He was so convincing, so earnest, telling me it was all to protect me, to ensure my comfort in old age, his voice dripping with false concern. "Just sign here, Mother. It's nothing to worry about. Just makes things easier for us to help you." I trusted him. He was my son. My brilliant, successful son. I signed. Blindly, foolishly, I signed away my life, my home, my independence. I also remember a chilling conversation I overheard a few weeks after signing. I was in the kitchen making tea, and Naeem was on the phone in the living room, his voice low but agitated. "She signed everything, yes. But the old woman is stubborn. She wants to stay. We need her out before the deal closes." The receiver clicked before I could make sense of it. I dismissed it then as an old woman's rambling thoughts, a misunderstanding. I thought he was talking about another client, another business deal. Oh, how devastatingly wrong I was. There was also Fatima, my dear neighbor, a loyal friend for decades. She always had a sharp eye and a sharper tongue. She had warned me, her face etched with worry. "Maryam, your children, they've changed. They look at this house like a bank account, not a home. Be careful." I brushed her off, defending my children fiercely. "Fatima, you don't understand. They love me. They're just busy." She'd shake her head, a silent lament. Now, sitting here on the cold street, I understand. I should have listened to her unwavering wisdom, her honest fear. The pressure intensified daily. They started openly hinting about selling the house, saying it was in a prime location for development. They'd bring shady property agents to the door, unannounced, their faces grim, their eyes cold. "Just looking, Mother," Naeem would say, as these men in expensive suits walked through my rooms, appraising my memories with detached, calculating eyes, stripping away the soul of my home. Salma started spending more time at Naeem's apartment, less time with me, her visits becoming fleeting obligations. The loving daughter I knew slowly vanished, replaced by a ghost of indifference. And then came the final blow, the eviction notice served by Naeem himself, looking triumphant, a cruel smile playing on his lips. He said, It's official, mother. The house is sold. My world crumbled into a million irreparable pieces. But what really made me question everything, what truly ignited this burning suspicion, was a specific incident just a week ago. I was cleaning out some old drawers in the study, a room Naeem rarely entered. Tucked away under some dusty books, I found an old faded photograph of my husband and me, younger, smiling, carefree. And beneath it, a small unmarked envelope. Inside, not money but a folded yellowed newspaper clipping from years ago. It mentioned a land dispute case, involving a distant plot of land Ahmed owned, a plot that was rumored to have valuable mineral deposits. The clipping mentioned a large corporation, a big payout, and a powerful family involved. I didn't think much of it then, dismissing it as old news, but now, sitting on this cold, unforgiving street, it clicked. Naeem had been pushing me to sell that land too, aggressively, relentlessly, saying it was useless, worthless. Could it be connected? Was there greed about more than just this house, about more than simple property sale? It must be. The aggressive push to sell that particular piece of land, coupled with their sudden obsession with this house, couldn't be a coincidence. And that clipping, it mentioned a powerful family, a name that felt vaguely familiar, though I couldn't quite place it, a name of influence and perhaps even corruption. I had seen Naeem on his laptop late at night, hunched over, whispers on the phone about deals and partners. And then it hit me, a jolt of ice water. A name. A name from the clipping, a name I had seen on a document in Naeem's briefcase, left carelessly open one afternoon. It was the name of the Khan family, a very powerful, very ruthless business family, known for shady dealings and a history of acquiring land through questionable means. And suddenly, the shadowy figure in the window, the cold laugh, the coordinated cruelty. It all began to connect to something far grander and more dangerous than just my children wanting my house. I wasn't just evicted. I was a pawn in their elaborate, sinister game, and the Khan family was pulling the strings. The name echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper in the desolate night. Khan family. It was like a key turning in a locked door, revealing a corridor of shadows and secrets I had never imagined. That wealthy, powerful family, known for their sprawling businesses and their knack for making problems disappear. They were involved. The newspaper clipping from my husband's old drawer, the one about the land dispute and the hidden mineral deposits, suddenly made horrifying sense. This wasn't just about my home. This was about a massive secret fortune, and I was just an obstacle in their path, a stubborn old woman to be swept aside. My children, Naeem and Salma, were not just selfish. They were pawns, or worse, willing accomplices in a scheme far greater and more sinister than mere greed for my house. The chilling laughter I heard from inside, the shadowy figure at the window. It had to be a representative from the Khan family, cementing their dirty deal. My blood ran cold, but beneath the fear, a new fiery resolve began to burn. They hadn't just thrown me out of my home. They had dared to involve outsiders in our family's tragedy, outsiders who had clearly poisoned the very hearts of my children. I managed to drag myself to Fatima's door, my loyal neighbor, the only soul who had shown me any warmth. Her face crumpled with horror when she saw me, bruised and disheveled, huddled on her doorstep. She ushered me inside, her hands fluttering with motherly concern, preparing hot tea and wrapping a thick shawl around my trembling shoulders. "Maryam, my dear, what have they done to you?" I knew it, I knew they were up to no good, but this is monstrous. Her voice was a balm, a lifeline in my stormy sea of despair. As the warmth of the tea slowly seeped into my body, I recounted everything, my voice hoarse with pain and fury. The eviction, Naeem's brutal shove, Salma's chilling silence, the shadowy figure, and finally the name. Khan family. Fatima listened, her eyes widening with each revelation, her initial shock slowly replaced by a grim determination. The Khans? May Allah protect us. They are ruthless, Maryam. They don't play fair. If they are involved, your children are in deep, deep trouble. And you are in danger. Her words sent a fresh wave of fear through me, but also a strange sense of clarity. Fatima, bless her soul, was not just a friend, she was a fighter. She had seen her own share of injustices in our community. We need proof, Maryam. You can't just accuse them. They'll crush you. She suggested I try to get back into the house, perhaps under the guise of collecting some forgotten belongings, to look for any papers, any evidence of their dealings with the Khans. It was a crazy idea, dangerous even, but the thought of facing my children, now armed with the truth, ignited a spark of hope. The next morning, armed with a newfound sense of purpose, I went back to the house. I knocked, my heart thumping like a drum against my ribs. Salma opened the door, her face a mask of annoyance. "What do you want now, mother? Haven't you caused enough trouble?" Her voice was laced with a chilling disdain, so far removed from the sweet child I remembered. "I just need a few things, Salma. My prayer beads, my old photographs. You can't deny me that." My voice was steadier than I expected, laced with a quiet defiance. She hesitated, glancing over her shoulder. "Fine. 5 minutes. And don't touch anything else." She stood by the door, arms crossed, watching me like a hawk as I stepped into what was once my sanctuary, now a foreign land. I moved quickly, my eyes scanning for anything out of place. The study door was ajar. My heart leaped. I slipped inside, pretending to look for something in a bookshelf. My fingers darted to the desk, to the top drawer where Naeem often left papers. My fingers brushed against a thin, legal-looking document. I pulled it out, my eyes quickly scanning the official-looking text. It was a preliminary agreement for the sale of the land plot, not the house, directly to a subsidiary of the Khan Group. And there at the bottom were Naeem and Salma's signatures, alongside a third, elegant, unfamiliar signature. It was clear now. They weren't just selling this house. They were using it as leverage, a stepping stone, or perhaps even a cover for a much larger, more lucrative deal involving Ahmed's valuable land. This was a direct betrayal of their father's legacy, too. Suddenly, Salma's voice cut through my frantic thoughts. "Mother, what are you doing in here? I told you 5 minutes." Her voice was sharp, suspicion hardening her tone. I quickly folded the paper and tucked it into my shawl. I walked out, trying to appear calm, but my hands were trembling. "Just looking for my spectacles, dear. Can't find them anywhere." I tried to meet her gaze, to find a flicker of the daughter I loved, but her eyes were cold, calculating, mirroring Naeem's. She was in this deep. As I left the house, the taste of ashes in my mouth, I clutched the document tightly. It was proof. Concrete, undeniable proof of their scheme, of their partnership with the notorious Khan family. This wasn't just about my children's greed. It was about a powerful, ruthless family using my children as their puppets to get their hands on my husband's land. The stakes had just exploded. I was no longer just a wronged mother. I was an accidental witness to a major land grab, a target perhaps, for forces far more dangerous than my own children. I showed the document to Fatima. Her face went pale. "Maryam, this is big. Very big. This is the kind of thing the Khans kill to keep secret." Her words were a splash of cold water, dousing my initial triumph with a chilling reality. We were up against giants. My children, my own flesh and blood, had dragged me into a lion's den. And the worst part? They knew exactly what they were doing. They were not innocent victims. They were active participants in this dark conspiracy, blinded by the promise of easy money and power. Fatima suggested we seek help from an old family friend, a retired lawyer named Mr. Rashid. He was known for his honesty and his dislike for the Khan family's unethical practices. He lived far away, but he was our only hope. As I walked away from my old friend's house, the document hidden securely, the true nature of the antagonist became painfully clear. Naeem and Salma weren't just misbehaving children. They were full-fledged villains, consumed by a greed that had extinguished every spark of decency within them. They had crossed a line, and there was no turning back. The night air was a sharp reminder of my homeless state, but the paper clutched in my hand was a burning ember of hope. This wasn't just about getting my house back. This was about exposing a ruthless family, about bringing my own children to justice, not just for my suffering, but for their complicity in something truly evil. The fight had just escalated from a family squabble to a deadly game of chess. And I, the forgotten pawn, had just found a way to become the queen. And as I walked through the darkened streets towards an uncertain future, a dark thought solidified in my mind. What if the shadowy figure I saw, the one who laughed, was not just a representative but the head of the Khan family? What if this entire eviction, this elaborate lie, was merely a test of my children's loyalty, a twisted initiation into a world of corruption, and I was simply the collateral damage they were willing to sacrifice? The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through me, but also cemented my resolve. I had to expose them for my sake, for Ahmed's legacy, and perhaps even for the souls of my lost children. The journey to Mr. Rashid's village, a place miles away from the city lights and the shadows of the Khan family, felt like an endless pilgrimage. Every step was a fresh stab of pain in my weary bones, every breath a testament to the sheer indignity of my situation. I had no home, nowhere to lay my head, relying on the kindness of strangers and the fleeting comfort of bus stops and park benches. The chill of the night, the pang of hunger, the constant fear of being alone and vulnerable. These were the cruel companions my own children had bequeathed me. Each aching joint, each shiver was a cold, hard consequence of their betrayal, a constant bitter reminder of the home I had lost. But wrapped tight in my shawl against my pounding heart was that single yellow document, the agreement with the Khan group. It was my only weapon, my only hope, a flimsy shield against the monstrous force that had consumed my family. It gave me purpose, a reason to push through the exhaustion, the shame and the crushing despair. I wasn't just an old woman thrown out. I was a witness, carrying a truth that could bring down powerful men, and I prayed, expose my children for the monsters they had become. When I finally reached Mr. Rashid's humble home, a wave of relief washed over me, so strong it almost buckled my knees. He was an old man, his hair as white as cotton, his face a map of kindness and wisdom. He listened patiently, his eyes grave, as I recounted the entire horrifying tale, the years of sacrifice, my children's subtle manipulations, the deceitful papers, the brutal eviction, the shadowy figure, the chilling laugh, and finally, the damning evidence of the Khan family's involvement. His silence was heavy, filled with a deep understanding. He took the document, his fingers carefully unfolding the brittle paper. His spectacles perched on his nose, he read through the legalese, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. When he finally looked up, his eyes held a profound sadness, mixed with a steely resolve. "Maryam," he began, his voice low, "this is far more dangerous than you can imagine. The Khan family. They are like a cobra. They strike swiftly, silently, and they leave no witnesses." He explained the complex web of shell companies, the layers of legal protection they had built around their illegal dealings. This wasn't just about land. It was about vast sums of money, influence, and a legacy of corruption. "Your children, Maryam," he continued. "They are either incredibly foolish or deeply, deeply complicit. They have put themselves in a precarious position. The Khans will use them, exploit them, and when they are no longer useful, they will discard them like broken toys." His words were a painful confirmation of my worst fears. My children weren't just misguided. They were tangled in something evil, something that threatened to swallow them whole too. The mother in me, despite all the pain, still felt a pang of dread for their fate, even as my righteous anger burned. Mr. Rashid then outlined the monumental task ahead. We were up against unlimited resources, corrupt officials, and a legal system often swayed by power and money. He explained how easily they could discredit me, paint me as a senile old woman, or worse, make me disappear. He spoke of threats, of intimidation tactics, of false accusations. He wasn't trying to discourage me, but to prepare me for the brutal reality of fighting such a formidable, ruthless enemy. The mountain before me felt impossibly high, shrouded in a dark, impenetrable fog. That night, alone in the small guest room Mr. Rashid provided, the all-is-lost moment finally crushed me. I lay on the thin mattress, staring at the ceiling, the silence of the night echoing the hollowness in my soul. I had no money, no home, no family. My children, my own flesh and blood, were now my sworn enemies, entangled with a powerful, dangerous crime family. I was old, tired, and utterly alone in this terrifying battle. What good was one piece of paper against an empire of lies and power? My tears flowed freely, silent, hot rivers of despair that soaked the pillow beneath my head. I cried for my lost husband, for my ruined life, for the children I no longer recognized. I felt utterly, completely defeated. Thoughts of giving up whispered in my ear. Just disappear. Let them have it all. Let them swallow their ill-gotten gains and choke on them. What was the point? I was just one person, a broken old woman. The world was cold and cruel, and my own blood had proven it beyond a doubt. The weight of their betrayal, the sheer enormity of their heartlessness, pressed down on me like a suffocating blanket. My chest ached, my breathing became shallow. It felt like I was drowning in an ocean of pain, with no shore in sight. Then amidst the crushing despair, a faint flicker. A memory. It wasn't a grand revelation, not a sudden burst of courage. It was the image of Ahmed's face, his kind, strong face, beaming with pride as he handed me the keys to this very house years ago. Our home, Maryam. Our legacy. Built with honest hands, for our children and their children. His words, echoing from the past, were a gentle breeze, stirring the dying embers of my will. His legacy. My legacy. It wasn't just dirt and bricks. It was honor, hard work, integrity. I wouldn't let them desecrate it. I wouldn't let their greed overshadow the honest life Ahmed and I had built. I wouldn't let my children become tools of the Khan family, their souls consumed by corruption without a fight. My tears dried, replaced by a quiet, burning resolve. I was Maryam, Ahmed's wife, the mother who had faced every hardship with courage. I was not a victim. I was a survivor. This was my breaking point, yes, but it was also my turning point. I would not let them win. Not easily. I would fight. With every last breath, with every ounce of strength left in my old body, I would fight. It wouldn't be easy. It might even cost me everything. But the alternative, to surrender, to let them walk away with their crimes unpunished, with my dignity trampled underfoot, that was far worse than any hardship. I didn't know how, but I would find a way. I had a trusted ally in Mr. Rashid. I had the document. And now I had a purpose that burned brighter than any despair. The thought of facing Naeem and Salma again, of seeing their cold faces and their calculating eyes, sent a fresh wave of nausea through me. But this time it wasn't just fear. It was a fierce, protective anger. They had chosen their path, plunged themselves into this darkness, and now they would face the consequences. I just had to figure out how to make those consequences land squarely on their doorstep, even if it meant exposing secrets that would shatter their lives and perhaps even mine. The first ray of dawn seeped through Mr. Rashid's window, painting the simple room in hues of gray and gold, but it brought no gentle warmth to my heart. My all-is-lost moment had passed, leaving behind a cold, hard resolve. Sleep had offered no escape, only restless visions of Naeem's sneering face and Salma's indifferent eyes, intertwining with the shadowy figure from my window and the chilling name. Khan family. I had to fight, not just for my home, but for my dignity, for Ahmed's memory, and to tear down the veil of secrecy surrounding their evil schemes. Mr. Rashid, a man of quiet strength, found me already awake, clutching the land agreement document like a lifeline. He saw the fire in my eyes, the battle-hardened resolve that had replaced my despair. "So, Maryam," he said, his voice soft but firm, "what is our next step? We are fighting a giant." My mind, surprisingly clear after a night of torment, had formulated a desperate plan. It was risky, perhaps even foolish, but it was the only way to expose them, to force their hand. "We need to find someone else who has been wronged by the Khans," I declared, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. "Someone they've stepped on, someone who holds a grudge. They don't just betray me. They betray everyone in their path." Mr. Rashid nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in my words. The Khan family, like all ruthless empires, surely left a trail of broken promises and ruined lives. Finding one such victim could give us an ally, a chink in their armor. My thoughts immediately went to the land plot, the one with the valuable mineral deposits. Ahmed had acquired it decades ago. A small, unassuming parcel of land that he had hoped to develop for the community someday, never for profit. But now it was the hidden jewel in this dirty crown. The newspaper clipping mentioned a previous dispute involving a small local landowner who had tried to claim rights to the area, only to be mysteriously silenced by the Khans. That person, if they were still alive, if they still had any fight left, could be our secret weapon. Mr. Rashid, with his network of old contacts and his deep knowledge of the region's history, began to make inquiries. Days stretched into a week, each moment a tense waiting game. I stayed with Fatima, my dear friend, who continued to be my rock, listening to my fears and fueling my determination. I spent hours poring over old maps, trying to pinpoint the exact location of Ahmed's land, trying to recall any stories my husband might have told me about its history, about the people who lived near it. Then the call came from Mr. Rashid. His voice, usually so composed, held a tremor of excitement. "Maryam, I found him. An old man just like me. Name's Bashir. He was indeed involved in a fierce dispute with the Khans over land bordering yours years ago. They ruined him, drove him to destitution, but he survived. And he remembers everything. This was it. The plot twist. An unexpected ally, a ghost from the past, holding vital pieces of the puzzle. Bashir was a shadow of his former self, living in a dilapidated shack on the outskirts of the village, his eyes holding the haunted look of a man who had lost everything. But when Mr. Rashid introduced me as Ahmed's wife, and I mentioned the land, a flicker of fierce intensity ignited in his gaze. He began to speak, slowly at first, then with a torrent of suppressed anger and resentment, recounting his own battle with the Khans. He told us how the Khans had systematically acquired all the land surrounding Ahmed's plot, using intimidation, false documents, and even violence to push out the small landowners. He described how they had silenced anyone who dared to speak up, often through mysterious accidents or sudden financial ruin. He spoke of their ruthless enforcer, a man known only as the Shadow, who carried out their dirtiest work. His story painted a terrifying picture of the depths of the Khan family's depravity, making my children's involvement even more chilling. They were playing with fire, associating with true criminals. But then came the bombshell. Bashir revealed something utterly game-changing. He said the Khans weren't just after the mineral deposits. There was something else, something hidden beneath Ahmed's specific plot of land, something they had been desperate to keep secret for years. He called it the hidden passage. He had only ever heard whispers, old village legends, but he believed it to be real. A secret tunnel or perhaps an ancient underground network that connected directly to a much larger, unexplored vein of a rare, highly valuable precious metal, far more valuable than the minerals they publicly claimed to be after. My mind reeled. This wasn't just about a mine. It was about a hidden treasure, an ancient secret, and the Khans had been trying to access it for years, systematically buying up surrounding properties, waiting for their moment. Ahmed's land, my land, was the final crucial piece of their puzzle, and my children, my foolish, greedy children, were helping them secure it, completely unaware, or perhaps deliberately ignoring the darker implications. The scale of the conspiracy suddenly broadened, stretching back decades, far beyond my immediate betrayal. This revelation flipped everything I thought I knew on its head. The house eviction wasn't just about selling property for quick cash. It was about getting me out of the way, making sure I couldn't stumble upon the newspaper clipping, couldn't discover the truth about the land, couldn't become an obstacle to their ultimate objective, accessing the hidden passage beneath my husband's very soil. They needed me gone, not just from the house, but from any knowledge of Ahmed's old properties. This was a direct, calculated move to seize a generational secret. Bashir, seeing my shock, offered a final crushing blow. He revealed that the Shadow, the Khan family's infamous enforcer, was actually Naeem's former business partner from abroad, a man Naeem had introduced to Salma years ago, a man who had seemingly disappeared after a failed business venture with Naeem. This implied that Naeem wasn't just used by the Khans. He had a direct, long-standing connection to their dark dealings, perhaps even orchestrating this whole scheme with them from the beginning, using his own mother and sister as part of his larger plan. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. Naeem's former business partner, now the Khan's enforcer? And he was the one who was laughing that night? This wasn't just about my children's greed. It was about Naeem's long-standing, deep-seated connection to a criminal underworld. He had planned this, perhaps for years, slowly poisoning Salma's mind, waiting for the perfect moment to execute his wicked scheme. He had used his own mother, his own sister, as pawns in his monstrous game. The maximum dramatic tension pulsed through the air, suffocating me with its weight. We now had a new ally, Bashir, hardened by his own suffering at the Khan's hands. He knew their tactics, their weaknesses, and he possessed a burning desire for revenge. We also had the vital missing piece, the hidden passage, the true motive behind their machinations. But we were also in greater danger than ever before. If the Khans knew Bashir was talking, if they suspected we knew about the hidden passage, they would stop at nothing to silence us. The stakes were terrifyingly high. My own children were not merely greedy. They were complicit in a vast, dangerous enterprise, led by a ruthless organization. and they were willing to sacrifice their own mother for it. I, Maryam, was no longer just fighting to reclaim my house. I was fighting to expose a criminal empire, to save my husband's legacy, and perhaps to finally force my children to face the horrifying truth of their own monstrous choices. This was no longer just about family. It was about justice, life, and death. The revelation of Bashir's connection to the Khan family, and the terrifying secret of the hidden passage beneath my husband's land, had jolted me awake. I was no longer just a broken old woman seeking justice for a lost home. I was a key player in a high-stakes battle against a ruthless empire. The fear was still a cold knot in my stomach, but it was now laced with a steely resolve. This was bigger than me, bigger than my children's betrayal. This was about reclaiming not just my dignity, but Ahmed's legacy, and exposing a deep-rooted evil. Mr. Rashid and Bashir became my war council. We spent hours in Mr. Rashid's small, quiet office, poring over old maps, newspaper clippings, and Bashir's own painful memories. Bashir drew diagrams of the land, marking the precise spot where he believed the hidden passage began. He spoke of the Khan family's history in the region, their slow, methodical acquisition of properties, their uncanny ability to silence any opposition. He even mentioned specific dates, specific incidents, building a timeline of their calculated moves. This wasn't just a sudden burst of greed from Naeem. It was a carefully orchestrated scheme years in the making. Our first move was to try and shake Naeem and Salma. Mr. Rashid advised caution, but I couldn't wait. The anger was a fire in my veins. I decided to make an anonymous phone call to Naeem, one that would plant a seed of doubt, a hint that their secret was no longer safe. I disguised my voice using a deep, gravelly tone, and spoke only 3 words: the hidden passage. Then I hung up. I imagined his face, the sudden flicker of fear in his eyes. It was a small victory, but it felt immense. The next day something shifted. Fatima, who was still keeping an eye on my old house, reported that Naeem and Salma seemed agitated. They were arguing, their voices raised, something they rarely did in public. She overheard Naeem shouting about loose ends, and Salma crying about getting caught. It was working. The pressure was beginning to tell. My children, who had seemed so confident in their cruelty, were now feeling the heat. This was the first taste of their reckoning, and it was a bitter one for them. Then Mr. Rashid, using his old connections, managed to leak a small, carefully worded piece of information to a local investigative journalist he trusted, Imran. Not about me, not yet, but about the Khan family's suspicious land acquisitions in the area, hinting at unregistered mineral claims and possible fraud. The article was small, buried deep in the newspaper, but it was enough to prick the Khan family's seemingly impenetrable shield. The first crack in their armor. This was a major turnaround. The powerful Khan family, usually untouchable, was now, however, subtly under scrutiny. I could almost feel their discomfort, their irritation. It was like disturbing a hornet's nest, but I was ready for the sting. The feeling of being an underdog, once a source of despair, now fueled my determination. I was no longer a victim. I was a strategist, a force to be reckoned with, armed with truth and driven by an unstoppable mother's fury. The consequences for my children began to subtly manifest. Salma, who had been so focused on her social life, started missing her expensive club gatherings. Her friends, who were often from influential families, began to distance themselves, sensing the looming scandal around the Khans. Naeem, too, was becoming visibly stressed. He was snapping at people, looking haggard, and making more frequent, whispered phone calls late at night. The web they had woven was beginning to tighten around them. The true test came when I decided to confront Naeem and Salma in person, this time with a witness. Mr. Rashid advised against it, fearing for my safety, but I insisted. I needed to see their faces when they realized I knew everything. We arranged to meet at a neutral location. A bustling tea shop in the town center, a place where their public image would be on display. Fatima came with me, a silent, comforting presence. When they arrived, Naeem's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. Salma looked away, avoiding my gaze. I sat opposite them, my back straight, my gaze unwavering. "So, my children," I began, my voice steady, "are you enjoying my house? Are you enjoying the spoils of your betrayal?" Naeem scoffed. "Mother, don't start your drama here. We told you it's our house now." Salma nervously stirred her tea, refusing to meet my eyes. Then I delivered the blow. And what about the hidden passage, Naeem? What about Ahmed's land? And your dealings with the Khan family? Are you enjoying that treasure too? Naeem's face went white. Salma dropped her spoon with a clatter. Their confident masks shattered, replaced by raw shock and naked fear. They exchanged a terrified glance, realizing I knew their deepest secret, the one that tied them to the powerful Khans. How do you know about that? Naeem stammered, his voice no longer confident, but laced with panic. That's impossible. Who told you? His eyes darted around, looking for an eavesdropper, a spy. Salma's face was a mixture of terror and accusation. Mother, what have you done? You'll ruin everything. You'll ruin us. Her voice was a desperate whisper, full of self-pity, not remorse. You ruined yourselves, I stated, my voice cold, devoid of emotion. When you threw your own mother onto the street, when you conspired with criminals to steal your father's legacy. That's when you ruined yourselves. The Khan family will chew you up and spit you out, Naeem. Do you really think they care about you? You are just their tools. My words were a chilling prophecy, and I saw the dawning realization, the genuine fear in Naeem's eyes. He tried to recover, to bluster, but the confidence was gone. You're delusional, old woman. You don't know what you're talking about. We'll deny everything. But the tremor in his voice, the sweat beading on his forehead, betrayed him. Salma, meanwhile, looked utterly terrified, her face pale. This was the moment of their realization, the tipping point where their smug certainty gave way to chilling fear. The confrontation in the tea shop was just the beginning. The seed of doubt I had planted had blossomed into full-blown panic for them. They knew I was a threat, a loose end. But I also knew they were now desperate. Desperate people make mistakes. And I was banking on those mistakes to expose the entire twisted scheme, to bring the powerful Khan family, and by extension my own children, crashing down. The reckoning had begun, and it was going to be brutal for all involved. The tea shop confrontation, that explosion of truth, had ripped open the flimsy curtain my children had tried to hide behind. Naeem and Salma were no longer just arrogant and dismissive. They were terrified. Their fear was a raw, exposed nerve, and I could practically taste it in the air. This was the moment, the final confrontation, the climax of this agonizing, soul-crushing drama. I knew it had to happen soon before the Khan family, alerted by Naeem's panic, could move to silence us all. Mr. Rashid, Bashir, and I gathered at a discreet location, a small abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Madharian Wala Kalar, chosen for its secrecy and its proximity to the infamous land plot. Bashir had a contact, an old miner, who had once worked for the Khans and knew about the hidden passage. He was willing to come forward, but only under extreme secrecy and protection. This was our chance, our one shot to expose everything. The plan was daring, reckless even, but necessary. We needed to lure Naeem and Salma, and crucially, one of the Khan family's direct representatives, to the land plot. The goal wasn't just to accuse them, but to have our new witness, the miner, confirm the existence of the hidden passage and expose the Khan's illegal operations, all while Imran, the journalist, would be hidden nearby, ready to capture it all. It was a high-stakes gamble, a trap set for the very people who had trapped me. I sent a cryptic message to Naeem, mentioning a final settlement at the disputed land plot, hinting that I had new information he would not want the Khans to hear. His greed, I knew, would override his caution. He'd want to know what I knew to control the narrative or perhaps to finish me off. Salma, I knew, would follow him, desperate to protect her own comfortable life, fearing the consequences. They arrived at dusk, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. Naeem's expensive car crunched on the gravel path, leading to the desolate plot. He stepped out, his face pale and drawn, Salma clinging to his arm, looking like a frightened rabbit. But behind them, in a sleek black SUV, another car pulled up. Out stepped a man I recognized from newspaper photos, Mr. Karim Khan, the ruthless heir to the Khan Empire, flanked by two burly bodyguards. His presence confirmed everything. Naeem hadn't just brought Salma. He had brought the main antagonist. Mother, what is this nonsense? Naeem's voice was shaky, a stark contrast to his usual arrogant tone. What new information? There's nothing to discuss here. He tried to sound authoritative, but his eyes darted nervously between me and Mr. Karim Khan. Salma was trembling, her gaze fixed on the powerful Khan family member, a clear sign of her fear and complicity. I faced them, standing tall despite my aching bones, the wind whipping my shawl around me. Nonsense, Naeem? Is this nonsense, Mr. Khan? I turned my gaze directly to Karim Khan, who merely offered a cold, predatory smile. We're here to talk about honesty, about legacy, and about the hidden passage buried right beneath our feet. The words hung in the air, a hammer blow. Mr. Karim Khan's smile vanished, his eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. Naeem let out a choked gasp, his face contorting in pure terror. Salma whimpered, burying her face in Naeem's shoulder. They had clearly not told the Khans that I knew that secret. This was the first major turnaround. Their carefully constructed lie was imploding before their eyes. What passage is the old woman talking about? Karim Khan's voice was low, dangerous, directed at Naeem. You told me she knew nothing. Naeem stammered. She's crazy. She's old. She's making things up, sir. He desperately tried to salvage the situation, betraying his own mother once more to appease his powerful partner. Salma, meanwhile, looked torn, glancing between her furious brother and the terrifying Khan, a flicker of something almost like guilt in her eyes. Am I crazy, Naeem? I challenged, my voice ringing with newfound power. Or are you simply a greedy coward who sold his soul and his family's honor to this man? I pointed directly at Karim Khan. You threw me out of my home, cheated me out of my inheritance, all for a piece of land you thought contained only minerals. But it holds something far more valuable, doesn't it, Mr. Khan? Something you've been trying to dig out for years. A secret passage to a hidden treasure. At that moment, Bashir, our brave ally, stepped out from behind a large rock, his gaunt face determined. She speaks the truth, he cried, his voice raspy. I saw their operations years ago. They drove me out for trying to expose them. They are after the ancient metal vein, hidden deep below, accessible only through the passage on this land. He pointed towards the ground, his voice echoing in the twilight. Karim Khan's eyes flashed with pure fury. His bodyguards tensed, reaching for something in their jackets. But just as they moved, Imran, the journalist, emerged from his hiding spot, his camera flashing, capturing every terrified face, every panicked movement. A shocking revelation, he declared, his voice loud and clear, carrying across the desolate land. The Khan group, involved in illegal mining and land grabbing, exploiting local families. Chaos erupted. Karim Khan roared in anger, ordering his men to seize Bashir and Imran. Naeem, caught between the furious Khan and the exposed truth, hesitated. Then, to my horror, he made his choice. He lunged at Bashir, trying to silence him, desperate to cover his tracks. You old fool! You'll ruin everything, he screamed, his face contorted with rage, confirming his utter allegiance to the Khan family's dark world. Salma, meanwhile, stood frozen, tears streaming down her face, finally seeing the monstrous depths of her brother's depravity. But Naeem's attack was clumsy, fueled by panic. Bashir, frail as he was, dodged him, and Imran, quick as a flash, snapped more photos of Naeem's desperate act. The police sirens, faint at first, began to grow louder, approaching fast. Mr. Rashid, using his old connections, had alerted the authorities moments before the main confrontation. The net was closing in. Karim Khan, realizing the trap, made a desperate move, trying to get back into his SUV. But the police car screeched to a halt, sirens wailing surrounding the area. Officers poured out, guns drawn, shouting orders. The Khan family's bodyguards surrendered, seeing no escape. Naeem, caught in the headlights, stood frozen, looking utterly defeated, his face a mask of shame and terror. Salma collapsed to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably, the full weight of their actions finally crushing her. The role reversal was complete. The once powerful, untouchable figures, Karim Khan and by extension my children Naeem and Salma, were now exposed, caught, and facing the music. I stood there watching it all unfold, a quiet triumph swelling in my heart, even amidst the chaos. My dignity, once shattered, began to mend itself piece by painful piece. This was the true beginning of their haunt. The flashing blue and red lights painted the desolate land with an eerie glow, reflecting in the stunned faces of Naeem and Salma. Mr. Karim Khan, stripped of his arrogant composure, stood handcuffed, his eyes burning with a hatred that promised future revenge. The chaos of the arrests was a symphony of justice, a harsh melody ringing in my ears after years of silence and suffering. My body still ached, but a profound calm settled over me. A peace I hadn't felt since Ahmed was alive. I had done it. I, Maryam, the old woman they threw out, had brought down a giant. The next few days were a blur of police statements, media interviews with Imran, and hushed conversations with Mr. Rashid. The story exploded across the news, not just in Madharian Wala Kalar, but across the entire region. Elderly woman exposes Khan family's illegal mining ring. Son and daughter collude in land fraud. Hidden passage to ancient wealth uncovered. The headlines screamed the truth finally for the whole world to see. The public humiliation my children had inflicted on me was now, ironically, their own bitter medicine, swallowed in front of the entire nation. Naeem and Salma were taken into custody, charged with fraud, conspiracy, and illegal land transactions. The evidence, painstakingly gathered by Mr. Rashid and Bashir, combined with Imran's undeniable photographic proof and the miner's testimony, was overwhelming. Their desperate pleas of innocence, their attempts to shift blame, fell on deaf ears. The arrogance that had led them to believe they were above the law now looked utterly foolish, pathetic even, as they stood before a judge. The consequences for Naeem were swift and brutal. His esteemed job overseas vanished. His assets were frozen. His reputation, once spotless, was now synonymous with greed and filial betrayal. He was facing a lengthy prison sentence, the comfortable life he had so desperately chased now a distant, unattainable dream. He had traded his soul for riches and ended up with nothing but chains. The image of him being led away in handcuffs, his head bowed in shame, will forever be etched in my mind. That was the ghost of my son, a boy I once adored, now lost to the darkness he embraced. Salma's fate was intertwined with his, though perhaps slightly less severe due to her more passive involvement. She lost everything too: her social standing, her circle of wealthy friends who now shunned her, her freedom. The tears she shed in court were real, I believe, not for me, but for the life she had squandered, for the luxury she had lost. She was facing a significant prison term as well, a stark contrast to the pampered existence she had always known. The thought of her in a prison cell, facing the harsh realities of life, sends a strange mix of sorrow and grim satisfaction through me. She had made her bed, and now she had to lie in it. The Khan family faced their own reckoning. Mr. Karim Khan was arrested, and a massive investigation was launched into their entire business empire. Accounts were frozen, properties seized, and more hidden crimes began to surface. Their powerful name, once a shield, was now a target. It was a clear message that no one, no matter how influential, was above the law, and that even the smallest voice, when armed with truth, could shake an empire. Bashir, my brave ally, found a measure of peace. The government, now aware of the Khan family's deceit, began a process to compensate him for his stolen land and his decades of suffering. He was old, but his spirit was rekindled, and he finally saw justice served. Imran, the dedicated journalist, received accolades for his fearless reporting, his career skyrocketing, a testament to the power of truth in a world often clouded by lies. And Mr. Rashid, my wise mentor, retired with his head held high, having seen justice done one last time. As for me, Maryam, the old woman who was thrown on the street, I got my house back. It was empty now, stripped bare of the new paint and furniture Naeem and Salma had put in, but it was my home. The memories of Ahmed filled every room, and for the first time in a long time, I felt his presence, not as a source of grief, but as a comforting warmth. I decided to renovate the house, not to chase the luxury my children craved, but to create a haven, a place of peace and honesty. I made a vow, a solemn promise to myself and to Ahmed's memory. This house would become a center for community outreach, a place where elderly people like me could find support, guidance, and legal help if they faced similar betrayals. I would work with Fatima, Bashir, and even Mr. Rashid, who came out of retirement, to help me. I would use my experience, my pain, to help others avoid the same fate. My suffering would not be in vain. My home, once a symbol of my children's greed, would become a beacon of hope and resilience. The moral lesson of this agonizing journey is clear. as sharp and cutting as the winter wind that blew me onto the street that night. Greed, when unchecked, devours everything. It turns children against parents, destroys family bonds, and ultimately leads to ruin. My children, blinded by their hunger for wealth and power, sacrificed their very souls. They chased after a hidden treasure and lost the only true treasure they ever had: their mother's love, their father's legacy, and their own humanity. What I witnessed that night will haunt them forever, the cold, hard consequence of their choices. They will carry the weight of their betrayal, the shame of their public downfall, long after their prison sentences are served. For me, the haunting is different. It's the constant echo of what they were and what they became. But it also fuels my purpose. I survived. I reclaimed my dignity. And I found my strength, not in money or power, but in truth, justice, and the unwavering belief that some things are more precious than any hidden gold. So let my story be a warning, a powerful call to action. Value your family, cherish your elders, and never, ever let greed darken your heart. For the price of betrayal, as my children learned, is a haunting that lasts a lifetime.